Hey, it's Alex Ralka from BoardGameCo, and today we are talking about Time of Legends Destinies, which does have a late pledge. And today I'm going to try something a little different, and I'm going to cut straight to the chase. If you are interested in narrative-driven games, if you liked Chronicles of Crimes by Lucky Duck Games, then Time of Legends Destinies is a safe back. It's a decent back, not an amazing back. It is one that if you back it now, you will see a slight decrease in price compared to getting it later. And if you want to sell it, if you try it out and you don't like it and you sell it within the first few months, you will likely be able to get back everything you pledged, including your shipping costs. The longer you wait, the more you risk retail availability affecting that decision. And ultimately, it's a game that I can't recommend for the base pledge. I would recommend either getting the base pledge or the all-in, but we'll go more into that. That's basically it. So if you want to save on the next 15 minutes or whatever it is, that should cut straight to the chase. But if you want to find out more as to why I got to that conclusion or what goes into that decision, then let's go through it. And this is something new I'm trying, although given when I film videos and when you see them, it might not be the first time you're seeing this, but I'm trying this new concept of delivering a short, quick pitch of where I think the game lies, why you should or shouldn't back it at the beginning, and then I'll spend the rest of the video going into it. That way, if you're just here for the quick decision, you can jump straight to it, and if not, well, let's talk about Time of Legends. So, that all said, Time of Legends Destinies, what is up with this game? This is a game by Lucky Duck Games, who has a whole bunch of games under their belt, some that are absolute duds and have a horrible job holding their value, others that have a better time going into it, and we'll go through that. So to begin with, they have the Chronicles of Crime series, which is very heavily what Time of Legends is based off. Time of Legends Destinies is a combination of the Joan of Arc universe, although not anymore, we'll come to that later, combined with what they brought to the table in their Chronicles of Crime series with the QR codes and the adventure that can be changed, and you can use the components, use the characters, but using QR codes and story creation. And they're merging those two worlds into a different style of game, but with some of the core elements of both, and delivering an entirely new thing. Additionally, they have Kingdom Rush Rift in Time, which I'm hoping will be great. I'm super excited about that one. I'm a backer. They have Jetpack Joyride, Mutants, Fruit Ninja, Vikings Gone Wild, and a whole bunch of other games that have historically not done a great job holding their value. This is a company that has typically taken apps and turned them into board games to a large degree. We have Vikings Gone Wild was an app, Jetpack Joyride was an app, I don't know, but Mutants, Kingdom Rush was an app, and then Time of Legends and Chronicles of Crime are using apps. So this is an app-based company to a large degree. But in this game, in Time of Legends Destiny, ultimately it is a narrative-based game, very heavy narrative-based game, 1 to 3 players. You could play a 2v2 using one of the optional buys as more of a team-based experience. This is a narrative game, but it's not cooperative, although it has cooperative elements, meaning ultimately your character has their own destiny. That's why it's called Time of Legends Destiny. Your character has their own destiny that you're going to be going through and trying to accomplish, and to some degree you may end up cooperating with other players on different things, but ultimately you're kind of out for yourself and you're trying to fulfill your destiny, and that might involve trading, it might involve aligning on some goals, it might involve making decisions that ultimately will hurt the other player, and that's totally fine. Along the way, the game very heavily utilizes a scanner, and you use your phone as a scanner, and then QR codes in the various equipment, the characters. I don't believe the map tiles themselves have it, but I could be wrong, and that way it can create different adventures and journeys that will reuse the same components. Additionally, they are releasing the world design engine to the greater board game world to create whatever they want with this engine, with this story creation module or whatnot. So you'll have fan-created content to a large degree, which is insane. I mean, if a game does well and it has the availability of a fan base created content for whatever, then you'll see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of fan-created content, assuming this game does halfway decently, which it already has done halfway decently. It's just a question of what will happen after it hits retail. And that's basically it. You're going through the game, you are exploring the world, you are moving around. It does have a very big app focus, so if you're turned off by app-driven games, then this might not be a game for you. And at this point in the conversation, you're thinking, but Alex, you hate app-driven games. You shy away from those things like the plague. Why are you backing this one? And that is an excellent question. And the answer there for me personally, in terms of the app conversation, what it comes down to is Chronicles of Crime. I didn't mind the app in Chronicles of Crime. I liked it a lot in that game. It actually worked well for me in that game, which is one of the few exceptions for my own personal opinion of app-driven games. In the end of the day, I did not keep Chronicles of Crime, but that was more because I didn't like the mystery nature of sometimes being stuck on certain puzzles. It felt sometimes you got stuck in these loops of just trying to investigate different people without really any clear direction. I prefer the Unlock series myself if I want that kind of experience, but the app itself didn't bother me. I didn't mind the app in the game. And while Time of Legends Destinies does have a slightly more integrated app, meaning it's not as held back. It's a little bit more involved. It doesn't seem to be extremely more involved, and so I figured I'll give this a shot. This looked like the kind of game that I could enjoy solo, give it a shot, or possibly play with my wife and just have a blast going through this on a lighter, more, hey, let's have a TV night, but not with TV. So that's all interesting, but ultimately what it does come down to goes back to my first sentence in the beginning, which is I believe that this game will hold its value, and so I am willing to get it, try it out, and then pass it on if it's not for me, because I have had a bad history with narrative games, I've had a bad history with app games, so there's a very decent chance that this will not be a game for you. For me. Might also not be a game for you. In terms of the pledge levels, let's talk about the pledge levels. Let's talk about what you get in this game. So to begin with, they have the night pledge. The night pledge at $49, which is pretty good considering what you're getting out of here. This is a game that, it's not really a mini game, but it does have minis. And this core pledge, let's go through the core pledge over here. The core pledge over here, is over here. This is the core pledge, $49, €44 for the map tiles, the player boards. I believe these were resource player boards, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that was a stretch goal. The Destiny cards, we have the item cards, the dice, the coins, skill markers, points of interest, trade tokens, 30 hero and NPC miniatures. Anything you see on this page that says it's Joan of Arc compatible, please ignore. There is an update about that, so it's no longer Joan of Arc compatible, although of course fans might do what they want anyway. We have this Abaddon 90mm boss miniature, and so for a $45 pledge, plus shipping of course, $49 pledge, sorry, for a $49 pledge plus shipping, considering the content you're getting, this is basically a standard retail game plus. And the plus is because of the miniature components to a large degree. It's definitely not a bad price, but it gets even better when you factor in, because shipping is what kills it, as usual. Shipping is where you typically end up seeing a loss, where you're like, well, the game will be cheaper later, so why should I get it now? And the answer is they included this Forge of Destiny, this myth and folklore expansion that the backers all created together. It was fun. You got to vote along the way, but you created this expansion with different, more adventures that are in the game that we'll go through, which is all included for free in that $49 pledge. And this game comes both in terms of a longer campaign-driven adventure, but also with one-shot modes. And that myth and folklore really added a lot of one-shot modes. The basic game comes with, I believe, 4 campaign adventures and one-shot mode, and the Myth and Folklore expansion added 3 more one-shot modes that you can go through by yourself. And each one can be re-experienced. There is replay value even within the own adventures, because every character has their own destiny, and of course the way the game plays out is also going to be different in of itself. So there is definitely replay value there as well, even within the basic content that they are giving. So that's the basic night pledge is basically giving you a $49 game plus a $30 expansion, but then you'll lose on the shipping compared to getting it later, and so you're netting out, once you factor that all out, you're basically looking at a game, and this will be available on their web store. This $30 expansion will be available on their web store. It supposedly won't be available in retail. That's that Lucky Duck exclusive over here, so it will supposedly be available only on the web store, and once you factor in the shipping there as well, unless you're buying $100 of shipping, there will be sales. Their web store does have sales. Ultimately, what you're looking at with this core pledge is you will be able to get your $49 back plus shipping. You'll be able to get that all back very easily, even if you play the game and find it's not for you and want to turn around and sell it. As time goes on, that might not be true. As time goes on, being able to get back your money will be harder and harder. Eventually, it might hit this deep bargain discount point, and that's always possible. But for sure, you are safe off the bat in terms of getting, well, for sure is a relative term. There's no guarantees. In my opinion, you are safe off the back when you back the $49 pledge. So if you are intrigued by this game, like I said, if you like Chronicles of Crime, if you like narrative adventures, if you couldn't care less about any of those, but you're watching my video and suddenly you're intrigued, well, go ahead and back it. Go ahead and get that late pledge, because this is a safe back. You will be able to turn around and flip it for what you paid. $49 plus, $12 shipping or whatnot. You'll be able to get that money back for the amount of content you're getting, at least initially. From there, the next pledge level is a $79 pledge level, and this starts getting a little harder already, because in the $79 pledge level, here, let's go through these are the adventures they have. We have the episode 1 with the Melusine, or the location, the salty marshes, and all these things were voted on throughout the campaign. It was a lot of fun. I actually had my kids vote with me. Basically, they got to choose what my vote counted for. But in any case, going up to the next, where is the next expansion option? Not expansion. By the way, the amount of reviews, we'll come back to that too. $49, okay, great. We have $79. $79 gives you the Myth and Folklore expansion, same as the base game, but it also gives you the Sea of Sand expansion. Okay, so it gives you that for an additional $30. You're getting the Sea of Sand expansion as well. Now this one, it's still a good back, still the same logic applies, but now it's already more of a risk, because that built-in free expansion is not as distributed, which is typical with expansion content. It tends to be not as good a deal. That being said, probably still a safe back, probably still one that you can get your money back, probably not something you have to worry about. And finally, from there, we have the $129 King Pledge. This one is basically $79. Gives you, well, it's not $79. $129 for the King's Pledge. It gives you all the stuff in the prior pledge. It gives you the Bound by Fate expansion, which is a 2v2 mode. So they gave all these expansions that would be, these are the prices that you'll see. That $20 is what it would cost on its own as an optional buy, but it's $15 when bundled as part of the all-in pledge. Same thing with the coins. 28 medieval coins would be $20. Instead, it's now $10 if you get it as part of this, legendary all deluxe. The Neoprene mat is normally be $20, it's $15. The 4 large neoprene mats for the players, the reason it's 4 is in case you have the 2v2 mode, it would be normally 20 and now it's 10. So basically it's giving you a bunch of these discounts on all these optional buys if you just group it all together. So ultimately my recommendation would be probably going for either the Core Night Pledge if you're on the fence. If you're pulled in, you're intrigued, you're not really sure though, so just go ahead. It's $60 basically. Once you count for shipping, it's $60. 1,800 people went that way, certainly not a bad deal. The King's Pledge had 3,600 people, twice as many people went for the King's Pledge. A little bit more of a risk, but you get more content. So it's the actual return is not as great, but still a good deal. And then we have the Legendary Chest Pledge, which is the 1,800 backers, and that will be a better deal if you want those optional buys, if you want those neoprene mats, if you want those metal coins, if you want this Bound by Fate expansion. That's all a great deal. If you don't want that, it's a little harder. Ultimately, all of these pledge levels are likely to get you your money back when this hits. Sell it in the first, well, not sell it. Try it first, see if it's a game for you. If it is, amazing, keep it, great, you just got a great experience on your shelf now. If it's not a game for you, turn around and flip it in the first, 3 to 6 months, and you'll probably be able to get your money back, including shipping, before that retail hits, before it starts being more flooded and more available elsewhere. And that's basically, in terms of the what's it called, in terms of the value proposition, that's basically it. It's quick and to the point. The Pledge Manager's over here. I'll include a link down below, but you can see you have that all-in pledge. And if you scroll down, if you go to the first page, it shows featured products, make sure to scroll down. You'll see the rest. You'll see the $49, $79, and $129. They have the same pricing on everything. So anything you could have gotten in the Kickstarter is still available. Please note, I do not know how much longer the Pledge Manager is up for, but you're still good now. And in terms of the Joan of Arc stuff, let's talk about the Joan of Arc stuff. There's a little bit of Joan of Arc drama, which is basically, this was tied to, thematically, it was tied to Joan of Arc, Time of Legends, Joan of Arc, which they were working together with Mythic about that, and then they had this licensing drama with the creator of Joan of Arc and the re-campaign and all that. The net result as far as how it affected this campaign is all that stuff up above where it says, hey, this is Joan of Arc eligible, look at this, Joan of Arc compatible content. It's not anymore. Now, to their credit, what Lucky Duck did when this news came out, what Lucky Duck did is they said, hey, it sucks, we know, so right now for the next however much longer, we are offering full refunds and we will cover all fees if you decide this is no longer something you're interested in, which is great. It's kudos to them. I think I would have preferred personally had they said, and instead you get this, which would have been nice, because ultimately it still leaves a bit of a sour taste to some people. Not to me. I wasn't planning on really using this for Joan of Arc, but it can leave a bit of a sour taste, feeling like you got less, and just because you got offered a refund doesn't mean that's necessarily something fun. They could have done something simple, like even saying, hey, simple's a relative word. It would have been great if they could have said, hey, we'll design one more one-shot adventure that will go in the campaign instead. Something like that would have been excellent. It would have given you an extra scenario, which would have cost them development time, 100% it would have. But it's always a tough conversation. But overall, I'm still happy with how they handled it. Overall, they still gave people that way out. So good for them on that count. And lastly, in terms of critical reception, and critical reception is a bit of a toss-up because it hasn't yet been released. But one of the things that you'll notice here, and I'm gonna specifically scroll down and just go slowly, well, not that slowly, but I'm gonna scroll down and go through it. But if we go through this campaign page, we have How to Play from Rado, we have Man vs. Meeple, we have John Gets Games, Tantrum House, Learn to Play Games, Ludovox, and it's gonna keep going. We're gonna start seeing testimonial after testimonial over here. Let's go down further. Where are we next? Okay. Over here we have more Rado's Final Thoughts. I love the way this app integrates. Now Rado seemed to like the game a lot, and as always, Rado's generally positive, but he seemed to really like the game. The Battlecast, they really seem to really like the game. Bauer's Game Corner, I highly recommend watching this video. Bauer's Game Corner seemed to love the game. Now again, these are all paid content, paid previews. I don't know if they all were, I shouldn't say that. These are all previews, pre-content. Take it with a grain of salt, but I still recommend watching a few of them. We have Never Board Gaming, the best narrative-driven board game I've ever played. There was a ton of content. This is likely going to be my favorite game I've played this year. Again, take them all with a grain of salt. You have to, including my own stuff, by the way. Whenever I do something that's in any way related to the publisher, take it with a grain of salt. But when you watch certain content creators, over time, you can often get a feel for when they are doing more of a preview and when they are being more effusive, more positive. And if you've watched them on a regular basis, I recommend ignoring any single preview or any single paid content. I recommend ignoring it out of hand until you've gotten a feel for that content creator. And that, again, that includes myself. It's more about getting a feel for whether someone's tastes align with your own. Additionally, for how positive they are here versus how medium or middle they are there. You want to get a feel for how these different people present themselves. But I will say, as someone who watches a lot of videos from a lot of content creators, there seemed to be a very high degree of positivity about this game from a lot of people. A high degree of positivity. And that's one of the things that sold me on the game. It's one of the things that pushed me over, because like I've said in the past, I am not a narrative-driven person by nature. I'm not a narrative-driven board gamer by nature. I will say this reminded me a bit more of Seventh Continent in its style and approach, and that is one of the few games that it's not typically narrative driven, but that is one of the games that has gotten through that I wouldn't have thought would. I stayed away from Seventh Continent for a long time because of that, but this ended up being one that pulled me in. A part of that was the huge amounts of testimonials and over positivity, over effusiveness, even from people who normally are at this level, and they were at that level. And so that basically worked for me. That's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Ultimately, just again for a recap, this is ultimately a safe back in my opinion, but it's one that if you are concerned, if you are trying to make sure you get your money back, if you don't want to lose in it, then try it when you get it, see if it's for you, and if not, turn around and sell it. This will eventually stabilize to a degree. I believe it'll probably always be one that holds its initial value, just because of the fact, even that one expansion alone being Lucky Duck exclusive and you having to deal with it through them, unless it goes on some heavy deep discount on their site, which in general, something like that, like something we've seen with I can't find the stuff, but let's say over here, this Vikings Gone Wild. Lucky Duck's games on their web store has had some severe deep discounted stuff, but whenever you see huge deep discounts, it usually means a product was overproduced and they're trying to get rid of it. Discounts will always exist. There's always room for margins of saying, here's 20% off, here's 35% off. There's always room for that kind of conversation. But when you see things heavily slashed, it usually indicates too much was produced, and now the publisher, distributor, wholesaler, retail store, whatnot, is just trying to get rid of dead stock. So unless this ends up being a complete dud that was overproduced, I wouldn't expect to see huge discounts on their web store down the road. That is it. This is Alex from BoardGameCo. Please let me know in the comments down below in terms of whether you like that approach of me delivering a verdict up front and then proceeding into the content. I to a certain extent, it goes against YouTube best practices, by the way, because YouTube best practices is you're supposed to try to keep people engaged throughout the whole video. So you actually want to tell them, and stick around to the end and you'll hear my final thoughts or whatnot. It gives them a reason to watch the whole video, to sit through the ads, the content, to stay on YouTube. Standard YouTube best practices is don't give people a reason to click away early on. That being said, I think to a large degree, the people who value my content the whole way through will want to hear the whole way through, and the people who otherwise my videos may not have been a good fit for because they're 18 minutes of me talking about the same game, I think those people might find that early on intro. I'm trying to see if I can cater to the best of both worlds. Ultimately, time will tell whether that can be a thing or not, but I am interested in hearing your thoughts. I'm interested in finding out what your opinion is. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and I hope you have a good one.